Hi, I'm Jim Heavey, and here's another great tip from Wood Magazine. Much like you'd use a zero clearance insert in your table saw or your bandsaw to support that wood during the cut, to keep the chip out and the rough edges from appearing, you can do the same thing with a router table. And the process is really easy. All I did was I started with a piece of MDF, and the thickness of this MDF is the same as the thickness on the face of this fence on my router. I'm going to take this with a router bit, 45-degree chamfer, and I'm going to route each edge of this blank block, and then I'm also going to route the inside faces of this fence on both sides. Once I've done that, I've created an insert, and you'll see how well that works. This is that completed piece. All I'm going to do, because of the chamfer, is put it in the fence face, close the fence over the front of it, and this now provides a zero clearance insert that's even with the face of the fence. And using this is pretty easy. Here's how we set up the bit. Here's how we make that zero clearance. So now you can see that the insert is in place. Having slid the fence over to the front and locking it in really tightens up that insert. I've placed the fence face just behind this bit. So I'll turn on the router and slowly advance that face into the bit until the bit cuts its own zero clearance profile in the front. And now here you can see how that router bit's profile is cut perfectly in the face of that fence. And again, the insert is flush with the front. As I run anything past that dovetail bit, the outline will be perfect and there'll be no tear out because the bit itself carved its own profile. Now, if you're planning on using a bit with a bearing, you'll use the same procedure with just a little bit of a twist. Here's how that works. Now I've installed my bit. This is at the height that I'm planning on using for the project. I've also drilled a hole on the back side with a Forstner bit to provide clearance for the bearing. So much like we did with the dovetail bit a minute ago, I'm just going to advance this fence into that bit. As soon as I expose the face of that bearing in that hole, I can stop, and now I have a perfect zero clearance insert for that bit. This will take a little travel, so it may take a second to do it, but you'll get the idea. So you can see that bit has created its own profile. So if a project calls for a zero clearance insert for your router table, whether you're using the dovetail bit like we did before, or whether or not you're using a profile bit like this with a bearing, these inserts work well. And they provide a great cut. They back up the wood fibers so that you don't get the same tear out, and the process itself is pretty easy. Make a bunch of these. You're going to use them.